Hey, it's Scott Petrak with another episode of the Brown Zone Coverage Podcast. In a mostly depressing season, the Browns played a fun and thrilling game Thursday night in Huntington Bank Field that had turned into a snow globe. The Browns blew a lead in the fourth quarter, then rallied for a 24-19 win over the Steelers. Here to discuss, as always, is Dave Chudowsky of Go, the WKYC Morning News. What's going on, Chud?
Running on fumes, just like you, Scott. Not a lot of Z's last night, that's for sure.
No, I think I left the stadium at about 3:55. Almost hit a deer like 20 feet in front of my house at 4:20. So I'm glad I missed that. And
Oh,
we're up at I know talk about you know how it is. You pay attention the whole drive home, and honestly, God, I'm like 30 feet from my house. I'm looking like where's my backpack, hitting the garage door, and I
yeah.
turn around and this deer comes flying in front of my car.
Oh,
Yeah, it would have been a. We probably wouldn't be doing this right now if that had happened, John.
yeah. Well, that's good news.
Yeah.
Well, you could have stopped over at Channel 3. I was at that time I was at work,
You know what? I should
you
have.
know.
We could have
Um,
knocked this out
yeah,
during your commercials.
yeah. I did not get a lot of sleep last night. I'm glad at least you and I are not on the east side. We were doing live hits this morning on Go on the morning show, and Candace Hare, the reporter, was out in Willoughby, and we were had another camera live driving around, and they got 6 inches in some parts on the east side,
Oh
Scott.
my gosh, that's terrible, John.
Right? 6 inches. I mean, you know,
I have no snow on my ground right now. I can see
yeah,
my green lawn. That's
yeah.
crazy.
I'm driving through downtown right now on my way home from work, so I'm in the car doing this and driving by Progressive Field right now, and yeah, there's no snow anywhere. Um, but it's gonna rain today. It's gonna be an ugly day. Like you just want to stay inside type of day. Um, so at least that's what Matt Winch says.
Well, there you
Uh,
go.
so there you have it. But yeah, what a night that was. I mean, I just didn't want to stop watching. I obviously have to go to bed early to get up early, and it was just quite the scene. The snow globe effect, all that weather, fans without their shirts on, and playing the Steelers. I mean, it's incredible. It's just like we predicted, right, Scott? The Browns would come away with the win.
We no, we did not. But we thought of like that's how you thought it could go. At least that's how I thought it could go. I know you felt the same way, Chud. That
Yep.
the Steelers were coming off the Ravens game. It's a Thursday night. The Browns were probably going to have great effort. And, it's a national TV game, all those things. It's the Steelers. I think that we talked about this last week. I think the Browns play hard regardless. But you figured you're going to get the Browns' best effort, but you don't know that at 2-8. And even if they play their best or give their best effort, doesn't mean they're going to win. They've played hard all year and still figure out ways to lose. And that was the dichotomy of this game is the Steelers find ways to win, the Browns find ways to lose. And it's been
There
that
you
way
go.
for years, and it's been that way this season, right? They entered 8-2 and 2-8. And in the fourth quarter, it felt like it was going right there. And it just adds to the excitement of this game, the fun nature of this game. I mean, first it's the snow, and there's light flakes falling in the first half, no big deal. And then the second half, you're right, it turns into what looks like a snow globe, and you can't see the field or you can't see the yard lines. Brownie the Elf is covered by the end of the game. It affected the pass rush. It affected everything. Guys are slipping. But it's just fun to watch. It's great. It was fun live. It's fun on TV. I'm rewatching it a little bit. So you have that aspect of it. Then you have Myles Garrett gets 3 sacks, and I know we'll touch on this stuff, but just the highlights. Myles Garrett gets 3 sacks and a forced fumble, and says he showed everybody that he's the number one edge defender. Nick Chubb gets 2 rushing touchdowns against the Steelers, who the last time he faced him, is carted off with that devastating knee injury. Jameis Winston had never played the Steelers before, had never played in a snow game before, has 2 fourth quarter turnovers, yet leads the winning drive and makes fourth down throw to Jerry Jeudy. It comes down to a Hail Mary at the end, all of it. And the Browns look like they're in control. And from my perspective, we've talked about this, Judd. You got to have a story, especially in a game like this or a nighttime game. We still have a paper, we still have a deadline. It's 18-6. You start writing it like the Browns won, all of a sudden, I think it was 102 seconds. The Steelers scored 2 touchdowns in a matter of 102 seconds game time. And now it looks like they're going to lose. So you got to write that part. And then they score. And then there's a Hail Mary. So it was just a crazy night. I think it was a fun night. You could tell fans were interested just by kind of the reaction on social media and the presence that was still there after the game and after the interviews. So yeah, it was, you know, I don't want to be prisoner of the moment, but it was one of the more fun games that I remember covering for all those reasons. Pittsburgh, Thursday night, the snow, all of it.
Yeah, no, it certainly was a fun game. Real quick, so when we were watching on TV, you could see the field was starting to get covered, and then you're like, are you going to be able to see the lines, and are you going to be able to see the yard markers and the hash marks? And it looked like on TV that it looked like it was almost TV computer generated to see the numbers on the field and all that. Is that the case? Like when you were watching it live, could you make out the numbers and all that?
No, that was a TV generated thing. At some point they shoveled and kind of blew off every 5 yards, and they did a goal line so you could see that. But obviously they can't do that between plays. They do it if the action's at the other end of the field or during timeouts. But no, it was really hard, and I keep, not to pat myself on the back, I keep pretty meticulous notes during the game. How long each play is, blah, blah, blah. And it was hard because you couldn't tell the yard lines. And the actual statisticians, and they announced it in the press box, I mean, you've been in there, they were struggling to tell how far a play was. So yeah, it was really difficult. Like I didn't, until you look at the official stats, like I didn't know Jerry Jeudy's third down catch on that final drive was 15 yards. It could have been 6. You just didn't know. It felt like a little bit of a guessing game there just because you couldn't see it. Kevin Stefanski said he stopped going to the surface, the tablet that they look at on the sideline. He quit going to it because you couldn't see anything because of the snow.
Yeah. Well, the recipe, Scott, is Thursday night football at home. Maybe we should have taken that more seriously. They've won 9 straight games at home on Thursday night, 3 of them against the Steelers. And I don't remember what the stat is, but I heard a stat about Tomlin on Thursday night. Like his record is not good in Thursday night games. Yeah. Maybe we should have put more stock in that.
Yeah, I guess. Like that always feels like a weird stat to me. Teams change, and it just, of all the stats you can buy into, I was not buying into that Thursday night stat carrying over. But yeah, they got a good run going. There's some impressive stats for Stefanski. I think I wrote it here, 11-4.
Well, he's 4 against the North.
Yeah, at home. They're 5-1 against the Steelers in their last 6 in Cleveland. And they've won back-to-back games against the Steelers for the first time since 2000, which I don't know why that I'm kind of blown away by that, but I am, that they haven't been able to win back-to-back games in 24 years against these guys. So yeah, for all the noise there was about Stefanski, and we talked about this earlier in the week, and I said it would be ridiculous to fire him. There was that at least discussion out there, and for his team to come out and play as hard as it did, to win, to pull off a big upset like they did against the Steelers, it quiets all that. And then you get those kind of numbers, and I think it's just a reminder of how good he's been in his 4.5 years there.
Yeah, and 11-4 at home against the North. And I did a big thing on the morning show back in Stefanski, and I forgot to say that it was 11-4 at home. But the bottom line to my point is that we've had decades and years of not being able to win in this division, and you finally have a coach that can win in this division, and yet people want to bounce him out of town. 2-time coach of the year, and I put it on social media. I said it this morning. I mean, if we bounce him out of town, he's just going to go to another team and make us pay, or at least make us look like idiots. That's my opinion. I know you agree with me.
Oh, yeah.
I was pretty adamant about this morning, and last night is more proof of why. I mean, Scott, you said it last week. You got it. You deserve credit for this. You said that they did not quit last week, and a lot of people thought they did. and you said they didn't. And if this was a quitting team, last night would not have happened.
Oh, I completely agree. I mean, those were not, yeah, those were not the elements for the faint of heart, right? For guys that didn't care. And I thought you saw really good tackling, especially early. The Browns are good at the defense. I know they let up the 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. One of those was a short field after the Winston fumble. But the Steelers were 1 for 3 on fourth down. The Browns, they were 7 for 16 on third down, which was pretty good. But the Browns got some big stops early that made a huge difference in the game. Myles Garrett's first sack was an 8-yard loss. It forces a 58-yard field goal for a guy that hasn't missed kicks all year. The only kick Boswell missed all year is a 62-yarder. If it's from 50, he probably makes it. Instead, it's from 58 and he misses. They get a fourth down stop to get the ball back in the first quarter. If the defense came up big, I thought throughout, and made some much needed physical tackles early that I thought helped set the tone. And that's been missing throughout the year. They haven't tackled well. It certainly was missing against New Orleans. Juan Thornhill made a couple plays that he obviously didn't make against New Orleans. So yeah, they came ready to play. And for all the people that criticize Stefanski for his lack of emotion, and I get it, he doesn't show a lot on the sideline. If you watch, the Browns put out the video every time they win of his post-game locker room speech, and he's got plenty of emotion, right? And that's a good time to show it, and he shows it, and he drops F-bombs. And I think the people that are down on him should pay more attention to that, and I think maybe it would have some kind of influence on that negative, that criticism of Stefanski.
Yeah, well, Scott, not to bring this up, but I will. At Jimmy Donovan's funeral, he was one of 3 people to give a eulogy, and you saw it right there. And I know a lot of people listening now didn't see it, but you saw that side of him in that eulogy.
Right, which I thought the same thing, Chud, and that comes across in the meetings with the players. He has it in him, and it does come out. And so I think that win last night was important to stabilize the situation. Now, who knows? If they lose the rest of the games this season, maybe we have this discussion again. But it certainly quiets it for right now, which I think is important because, right, they still have 6 games left. And I know they're not going to go to the playoffs, but there's some meaningful games to be played. He beat the Ravens this year. He beat the Steelers this year. There's not a whole lot of seasons since the Browns have done that. Even though this is a terrible season, I get it. They're fallen so short of expectations. I get all that. But it doesn't take away the fact that they beat the Ravens and beat the Steelers.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you what the difference was last night, how they won. Was it the weather? Was it a game plan? Was it this or that? But, then I started thinking about it. The only thing you can really compare it against is like last week in New Orleans where, you really can't blame Jameis Winston for last week. But I started thinking about it. What was the difference last night? The difference is so many of these losses were at the hands of Deshaun Watson. So it's hard to really compare last night to a lot of other things. I'm sure the weather played a little bit of a factor, but you know what? Someone on social media made a good point. The Steelers actually did better when there was more snow on the ground than they did earlier in the game.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. George Pickens after the game said the weather was a huge factor. The quote was something like the Browns aren't very good,
Right.
And he's a knucklehead, and you saw it. I didn't even see it during the game. I didn't notice it until after because there's a million things going on. And I'm sure you saw it. That Hail Mary, he doesn't even go for the ball. He just takes Greg Newsome and runs him toward the stands. And then they fight for a while over there. Security had to come over. Incredibly talented player, but a troublemaker. I think he gives Mike Tomlin. I think he gives him some issues and keeps him on his toes. But yeah, I mean, the Steelers can point to the weather all they want, but you're right, Chud. The Browns are up 10-3 at halftime, and the weather was fine. You can make argument that the weather helped the Steelers. Certainly, the Browns just played better, and the Browns played better than the Steelers. They made the play at the end of the game that they needed to make. Winston completes a fourth down. He completes a big third down to Jerry Jeudy. Kevin Stefanski didn't want to kick a field goal there because the weather was so bad that they were going to try to get as close as possible before kicking a field goal. and luckily they didn't need to because Chubb scores a second touchdown. But there's big plays there from the first series, like I mentioned with the Garrett sack, to the last series with the Chubb touchdown and the completions from Winston. The fourth down touch, Winston scrambles in for a touchdown on fourth down. This made big plays when they needed to. And we talked about it a million times, Judd. That's how most of these NFL games are decided. And that's what's been missing for a big chunk of this year. And you're 100% right. The Winston factor is huge. The Chargers game, they didn't play well. He had the 3 picks. The other 3 games he's played, he's given them a chance in the fourth quarter. And even though they had a rough start, they didn't have a first down on their first 2 drives, then they get it going. And you feel like the offense has a chance every time he's out there. And you didn't feel that way with Watson.
Yeah, I mean, if he gives you a chance to win 3 out of every 4 games, we'll certainly take that compared to what we've been used to. I thought we would have hit it harder already, but there's so much to talk about in this game. But the lead story has to be Nick Chubb, right? I mean, redemption, revenge, whatever you want to call it, to have the season-ending injury in prime time at Pittsburgh and be out for as long as he was, to come back and the first time he faces the Steelers is in prime time for the world to see, and he scores 2 touchdowns, including the game winner in the snow. What a great night for Nick Chubb.
Oh, no doubt. And, I would like to get Nick in an honest moment to say whether or not it meant more to him, because he swore during the week it wouldn't. And you talk to Kevin Stefanski and he says, I don't think it did. But then you get a little Myles Garrett saying, I'm sure it did. How could it not? He's a human being.
Yeah, right.
He's seen those jerseys for the first time, the Steelers jerseys, for the first time since he was carted off. And to come out and get 2-yard touchdown runs, the fans chanting his name when they get close to the goal line, the coaches, the play callers wanting to get him the chance, his teammates, and he didn't talk after the game, but so many of his teammates did. And it's just great hearing them talk about it. And Joe Bitonio said, I think he scored the first touchdown. He goes, I wasn't going to let him get out of there until I got a hug, and then the second one, he got like a pat on the head. And, that kind of meant something to Bitonio. And, Jameis Winston says, I don't believe in coincidences. And Chubb gets the 2 touchdowns against the Steelers. Just all of it. And then, Stefanski said he ran out of, he goes, I've run out of superlatives for him. He goes, he's my favorite player on this team. You can tell everybody else in that locker room he's my favorite player. Just like I have a favorite kid and she's not here. And it was a great line. And Stefanski's 2 boys are standing there. So, he kind of gives them, throws a little needle at them. But, I don't doubt for 1 second that Nick Chubb is Stefanski's favorite guy because he does everything the coaches want. And we saw last year just how much he means to this team. And they just rave about him as a teammate, as a player, if from a coach player standpoint, all of it. And to see him get those 2 touchdowns was huge. And you're right, Chad. It was, to me, there were a ton of stories of this game, but that's at the top of the list.
Yeah, and last night's game goes back to whereas last week, I feel like I'm on a teeter-totter of emotions as to whether, you blow it up or you keep it the way it is. Well, now I'm back to, I mean, if you get good quarterback play, they have talent on this team where they, again, don't think it's elite Super Bowl winning yet, or I say yet, I mean, they're 3-8. My point is. My point is they have the talent on the team that they can compete each and every week, which they didn't have for years and years and years. So I'm back to that. Well, don't blow it up. Like, let's see if we get a good quarterback, right? Like, let's come back next year and see what happens. Bring the band back,
Yeah, that's crazy about the NFL, right? The swings, the emotional swings, how you think about a team when you walk. It's so crazy. I walk out of the stadium hours after the game, but that's what goes through your mind. When they lose, it's, you got to blow it up. When they win, it's, oh, man. And obviously, it probably falls somewhere in the middle. But there are pieces here, Chud. And, that does make it – it's one of the reasons this season's been so disappointing, because you can say, they have this guy and they have that guy and they have a chance if they just play like this. But, again, to fall back on the Winston thing, you see Jerry Jeudy and the reason they went and traded for him. Right, those have been evident especially since Winston's taken over. And you saw it again yesterday. So there are those pieces, certainly. Now, there's tweaks that need to be made, obviously, but I'm with you. I lean toward that too, Chud. I don't think you have to tear it down. I think there's pieces here, and if you figure out the quarterback, you're right in this discussion with, the playoff caliber teams in this league.
Yeah. Well, that was one of my notes. You just kind of said it. I wish we could have seen more of this in the season that is now lost. It would have been nice to see more of last night this entire season. One thing I wanted to throw at you, last night watching that game, and I think you heard some people talk about it, it made you think of like playing in the backyard, Thanksgiving, Turkey Bowl, Snow Bowl. It's like every kid's dream, right? And that was AFC North football, Scott, right there in that stadium last night. But that leads me to my next thing, and I don't want to get into a huge deal on it. Let's just quickly comment and then move on. But I mean, I know it because I saw it on social media. You've mentioned it. It really makes you think about the dome, right? I mean, how many people watching last night were thinking, well, this doesn't happen if we have a dome?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, I put a little thing in my story about it, a paragraph in my story. Yeah, it's exactly right, Jen. Now, again, prisoner of the moment, and that was kind of the perfect setting because it wasn't too cold. So you could sit in the snow and the fans enjoyed it and it wasn't, 0 degrees. And more times than not, fans would probably rather sit in the climate controlled dome, but you're going to miss that. You're not going to, that's just the reality. You're not going to have that type of setting when you're in a dome. You would never have it at home again. And I know it doesn't happen a lot. And, you talk to the veterans and, it's the first time I've played in a snow game. I've been here a long time, whatever. But if you've been here like we have for a long time, in decades, it does come up, right? I went to games growing up where it was like that. And and it does. It's like Jack Conklin said, it's a game I'll never forget. It's one of the games you remember your whole life or whatever. Yeah, it's nights like that are special. And it wouldn't feel like AFC North inside. Yeah, the hitting might be the same. It might be as physical, but you're taking something away. All of it, the Browns would be the first team, the only team in the division to be in a dome. So I don't think that's going to change it. I think they're still going to Brook Park. I think they're hell bent on that, and it's going to happen. And we should probably take a step back. But it's certainly worth pointing out that the juxtaposition that you have this dome on the horizon, yet everybody enjoyed the elements so much last night.
No question. Couple more things before we rock out of here. You had mentioned Myles Garrett. First of all, one quick thing on the defense. I feel like the defense maybe won the game in the first half. You had mentioned a lot of reasons why. They set the tone, and congratulations to them. Love it, right? And then I feel like they held on and made sure they didn't lose it because, if the offense doesn't come through, aren't we blaming the defense in the second half, or am I wrong? Real quick.
Yeah, for sure. Now, the Winston turnovers would have had an impact right in the switch from 18-6 to 19-18.
Yeah, that's true.
But the defense gave up touchdowns. Let me look at the one drive.
Looks like they had some issues with coverage a few times. I need to go back and watch, especially the fourth quarter again. So it would be unfair to me to really give.
They gave up a 69-yard touchdown drive. Justin Fields had a long run. They did a good job against him overall. Stuffed him on a fourth down, but he came in at a big run around the right edge. A couple Browns looked like they ran into each other. But yeah, you're certainly if you handed a 12-point lead in the fourth quarter, and you don't keep it, the defense would have gotten blamed for sure.
Okay, so but they definitely set the tone in the first half. I want you to talk a little bit more about Myles Garrett and the whole deal with Watt and how that was kind of set up and what he showed last night. And obviously in the New Orleans game, he didn't have a stat or whatever that was, just what he did last night, and just talk about that dominating performance and just kind of let everyone know who might not know the whole backstory.
Yeah, so the setup is Garrett wins his first Defensive Player of the Year award last season. The day of the award, TJ Watt tweets something like nothing I'm not used to. And I'm trying to find it right now. But meaning that he's used to being overlooked, slighted. That's a story of, part of the story of nothing I'm not used to. That was the exact tweet. Thinking he should have won more than his one DPOY. This is why. And he led the league in sacks last year, and he was in the top 5 in all these categories, and would be unprecedented for him not to win. Well, he didn't win, and he let it know that he felt slighted. Well, Garrett was asked about it during the week and said, hey, I didn't complain when he was winning. When he had the trophy at his house, I didn't complain. He said it kind of felt like a double standard. Why is he complaining? And I'm paraphrasing here. But he said he was going to use it as motivation to come out Thursday night. Well, he obviously did, because he comes out, he gets 3 sacks in the first half, a forced fumble. And, Stefanski said the difference in the second half was the conditions got so bad it made it really tough to rush the passer. So who knows how many sacks Myles Garrett might have had. Then you see Joe Thomas posting on X about it and said the Steelers were doing everything they could to try to stop Myles, and it didn't matter. Garrett was still getting to Russell Wilson, which is a little bit of a contrast from when he had 3 sacks and 4 plays against the Chargers, because the Chargers are trying to single block him. Well, the Steelers know better than that. And Mike Tomlin said during the week, the Chargers, maybe they don't know Myles Garrett like we do, so they tried to single block him. We know him. You can't do that. Well, they didn't single block him, and Garrett still got to Russell Wilson 3 times. And I asked him how he did it, and he goes, I can't tell you because we're going to play these guys in 2 weeks. If I told you, they might figure it out. So it was just an amazing performance, and the Watt thing was part of the backdrop. And he goes 3 sacks. TJ Watt gets no sacks. And I asked Garrett about that after the game. I'm like, so does that feel like a win to you? And, he starts to give kind of like the right answer. Oh, it's not about me and him. I'm not watching him. But then he goes, I wanted to make it known that I'm the guy. I'm the number 1 edge defender. That was a statement I was intending to make, and I think I made it. So it just shows you. He thought, hey, here you go. You got the 2 best pass rushers in the league. Maybe you want to throw Micah Parsons in there, but I think you can say that these 2 guys, in my opinion, are the 2 best pass rushers in the league. And Garrett goes out and goes 3-0. And I think it was a statement made by him. I think in the other layer to this, Chud, is he is a team leader now. And at 2-8, he said, we still have things to play for. We're not going to go gently into the good night. We have legacies to play for, whatever. He stood up. Jameis Winston said, Garrett gave the pregame speech and said, and talked about what you had to play for. And it's the Steelers and it's AFC North and whatever. And the players, the rest of the team followed him. And then he went and set the tone on the field as well. So I think it was a huge game for Myles Garrett with all that stuff involved. And, they're going to see him again in 2 weeks in Pittsburgh, and who knows what happens there. But it was a giant statement from Myles Garrett.
Well, moving forward now, how about this? We have the next 2 Sundays off, right? Okay, we play again Monday Night Football in 10 days.
Correct.
In Denver?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's Monday night in Denver, then it's Sunday afternoon in Pittsburgh, and I think it's in Cincinnati. Maybe there's another week in there between. But yeah, there's a lot going on.
Yeah. So are you honest? Well, I guess the weekday games are harder to flex out, but yeah. So you got Monday night Denver at Pittsburgh, the Chiefs. You got the Chiefs at home.
Oh,
then at the Bengals, Dolphins Sunday night, at the Ravens January 5th to end it. Now that Dolphins game, that's going to get flexed out. There's no way that game stays Sunday night.
I would agree with you. Now the thing is, the Sunday night games, I think it's a 10-day window when you have to flex it out. The Thursday night games, it's 28 days because it's so much involved in a Thursday night game. The Sunday, you're just going from 8 to 1 or 1 to 8. You got more time for the league to flex it. So yeah, I mean, if the Browns beat Denver, beat Pittsburgh, beat Kansas City, maybe they keep it on Sunday night. But I would certainly expect that game to be flexed. but you're still the world's still gonna get to see the Browns in prime time.
Yeah, it's incredible to think, but yeah, that Dolphins game will get flexed, and yeah, that's wild. So yeah, well, like we said last week, they'd win a game that you wouldn't expect them to win, and they did that last night. And even if you did expect them to win, whatever, however you look at it, they got the win. So now they got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more games, and they're 3-8.
Yeah.
So now you look at things different. Obviously, it's just the way it always works. Now you think, oh, they can win a few more, but I mean, the game Pittsburgh's going to be. It'll be interesting to see how that goes in Pittsburgh, and then yeah, not an easy schedule certainly the rest of the way. But we'll talk about more of that as it goes on. But unless you got anything else, nap time for me.
No, I'm
Head
good,
into the weekend.
Yeah, right. No, I appreciate it, bud. Yeah, I thought it was important we got this in. I'm glad we did. No, so thank you, Chud. Yeah, we'll figure out next week if we do a little preview pod of the Broncos game, but we don't have a game until a week from Monday. So enjoy the downtime. Enjoy Thanksgiving if I don't talk to you before then, or the listeners before then. But I appreciate it, Chud. I appreciate everybody listening. This has been another episode of the Zone Coverage Podcast, and you can read all my work at brownzone.com. Thanks.